welcome again to our show topics. I'm your host Valencia, and I'm joined by the fabulous, handsome, knowledgeable Mr. Rudy.
Hey.
And we do have a special guest joining us on set today to talk about this one subject called mental illness. Miss Patricia. She is a retired counselor. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get right to it. First question we want to ask ourselves. Is mental illness being taken seriously in the Black community?
No. I think that is something that now is coming to the forefront. But as a whole, Black folk, it was something that they hid from, or they would not bring it to the forefront, because we always want to present a perfect world when it pertains to the Black race in the area of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So we make excuses for what we see, or we compensate.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I know that we sort of, because of our faith, whether it's Baptist, Methodist, or Christian, if there's a problem, we're going to pray about it. God's going to fix this kind of thing. So yeah. I definitely can see that, we do that a lot in our culture instead of getting the help that we need. So, Rudy, what do you think about it?
Well, the first thing is, I honestly don't think that it's necessarily a color issue, but what I do think is that they don't really have any answers for mental illness. I think that's one of the biggest problems. The United States Parade is doing a piss poor job at trying to help people that have mental illnesses and conditions. All they're thinking about doing is treating the symptoms and not the problem, medicating people. I've seen people on medication. I've worked in different settings with people that have to take some sort of medication. Mm-hmm. And the medication is a numbing effect. It doesn't necessarily treat it. I just had a conversation with my mother before I got here about it. And she just happens to be a nurse. And we were talking about depression. I think depression is a form of mental illness. Mm-hmm. And the way that they treat depression is medication. But I don't think that people that come out of depression came out of it because of medication. I think they came out of it because they really wanted to. Mental illness is something that I feel like you only break it if you really want to inside, but you have to identify it as mental illness mm-hmm. first. A lot of people can't identify. They just say that this person's crazy. We label people crazy all the time. We say that they're crazy, or they're, for lack of a better word, I don't know what the politically correct word is, a mental disability or something like that. We'll say that, put them in an institution, or we'll medicate them, but it never really addresses the real problem of mental illness. We'll try to get them out of that state of mind.
Right. So going back to what you said, depression is a mental illness. Mm. So this is a subject that's really dear to my heart because I work in the industry. So I help people with mental illness. So depression is labeled as a mental illness, but there's so many different, there's situational depression. I mean, you could have a traumatic experience and become depressed because of that traumatic experience. In that case, you don't need medication. In some cases, you may, if you seek a doctor and see a therapist. But if you seek a therapist before you seek a psychiatrist, who is one who gives out medications, writes the scripts, then the therapist can determine whether or not it's situational or whether it's chemical imbalance, where you need that medication. But I definitely do agree with you that it is our mindset. I think that we underestimate the power of our own minds sometimes. We can pretty much, as human beings, get out of anything if we really do focus on that. But we gotta have insight, and we gotta have knowledge, and there's gotta be resources out there. There's gotta be places for us to go. But I'm more interested in, I'm not saying that it's a race issue, but I'm more interested in, because we are Black people sitting here, I'm more interested in our experiences as Black people. I know for me, I think we all, let me not say me, but yeah, let me say me. I think a little bit of all of us have had that cousin that we look at that's like, oh, here she comes.
Mm-hmm.
and she becomes like the comedian of the family at that point. You know what I mean? It's she or he. It's like they're always doing something to make you laugh, but they're like that every day, and it's never addressed. It's never like, and that's the cousin or the person in the family that we say, what they doing? We don't know. They still in jail. They're in and out of jail. They're on drugs in the streets, or they never keep a job. They're always calling you to borrow money. And I don't think that we as a Black community are really addressing it with what it really is, by saying this person needs some psychological help so they can be successful.
So, go ahead.
But there are levels of depression because and certain medication, because I remember I had a knee replacement, and for a second, it was like as I had it, I would sit on the side of the bed, like I just couldn't get myself motivated to move. And I would sit there for maybe 20 minutes and finally move, and take me a long time to get dressed. And my sister said, you know, you act like you depressed. And it hit me, and I said, maybe I believe you're right. So I called my medical doctor, and she said to me, she said, well, you know, sometimes certain surgeries will bring on depression. And she did. She sent me a prescription. I took the medication, and I came out of it, and I was fine. You know, I never had any more issues with it, but I realized there was a problem. Now I do, and I have worked with people that know that they need the medication. They take the medication, especially when you're dealing with folk that have that imbalance or bipolar, and they need the medication to function. And soon they get well or feel like I'm well and I don't need it, then they stop taking it. And then gradually they go back into that state because they don't get it. That I need this medication to keep me on the straight and narrow. And John, my husband, goes every Tuesday with a friend. They go every Tuesday down to this woman's house that's a good friend of her. She graduated from Morgan. She had a master's. She had a good job. And one day, they called the family and said, you need to come get her. And she was diagnosed with bipolar. She did fine as long as she was on the medication. She has not been on the medication for over 15 years. They have to go now to this house. They have to make sure she has her food every week. She's blessed that she has a support system. But she does not have mattered. You know, I don't know when she took a bath. You have to force her, you know. But this is the life she's been living for over 10 years. And, you know, I've worked with professional people that have talked to me to say, yeah, I'm on medication. And I had to realize I needed it to make it. Other than that, I would notice anything. I even worked with a girl. And I said, girl, did you take your medicine today? Because I could tell in her teaching and her hollering at the kids and her response. And and most of the time she said, you know, I didn't take it today.
Do you think that that brings us to the next question. Do you think that besides the fact that we as a Black community don't want to, like you said, we want to present ourselves as good before society and we don't have any problems, so ain't nothing wrong with him. He all right. You just need, you just need a spanking, or you just need some discipline or some structure. Ain't nothing wrong with him. And we keep excusing it. But in reference to what you were speaking about, career and a job, like, do you think that just adds to us, like, being able to tell our employer that, yeah, I do take medication to stabilize myself so that I can cope? We don't want them to know that.
So with HIPAA laws, a lot of employers won't, I I don't think that they're going to have an issue because the last thing an employer wants is a lawsuit. There are a lot of people that we work with for mental illness. There's a lot of people that, depending on the type of job that they have FMLA, so they take off when they're having some sort of breakdown or some sort of issue or something, that they need some extended period of time to be off. So I don't think it's an issue as far as the employer is concerned. I think the issue is a personal issue. Like inside, you feel like people are looking at you differently because of whatever you may want to call it, a disability or mental illness or some sort of problem. You think that people feel like, oh, this guy over here, gotta be careful with him because if he didn't take his medication, we love to say somebody gonna shoot up something or blow up something or hurt somebody at the job. And we blame it on the lack of medication or some sort of issue. A lot of jobs are afraid to hire people on the front end that have issues, but when you talk about that, and you got to be honest, can you really blame them? I mean, society dictates how we treat people. I mean, we can't get away from that. That's the human nature. We look at history, we look at what's going on in the world, and we decide what we want to do from that. So if you look at what's going on in the world, right now, you have so many problems, you have so many things happening, and the only thing that you can really conclude is mental illness. You got to say something wrong. There's no way that a human being would shoot and kill or dismember another human being broad daylight in front of everybody and walk away. Then run and jump in the car and do anything, walk away. There's something mentally that has to be wrong. There has to be some sort of break or some sort of problem, some sort of trauma in this person's mind that makes them behave in that manner. And then another person comes in and apply the job that fits the same description of that person. I don't know if I want to hire you.
But they're taking their meds.
And they may not present a problem on the forefront. There was a show I was watching recently, and it was a senator. Senator was suffering from depression. The only person who knew it was his wife, right? On the front end, he presented himself very well. The opposing side wanted a bill to be passed, but some kind of way they knew his doctor, knew that he was suffering from depression. To get the bill passed, they came to him and told him that if you don't pass this bill, that we're going to expose that you suffer from depression. This man killed himself. The reason why he killed himself is because he didn't want to be exposed and presumed weak. He didn't want anybody to know his dirty secrets. And that's how he felt about it. And his wife exposed it at the end. She said he had been suffering from depression for 10 years. He had been dealing with it. And he smiled in public, but when he went home, it was a whole nother scenario. And by that
just
coming
like
out.
a comedian. I love
Was it Robin Williams?
Robin Williams.
Yes.
I mean, just mental illness to me, it's fascinating to see. The mind itself is fascinating for me.
Yeah.
But I just wondered if we are being responsible, enough, for our family members. I mean, we all see it in somewhere in our family. Are we saying maybe you should go get him diagnosed or get her checked out, or are we speaking up, or are we just sitting back and just letting the parents? It bothers me when parents know that there's a problem and they refuse to do anything about it because of what you said, because of the pride, because of the ego, because there ain't nothing wrong with my child. Because if there's something wrong with him, then there must be something wrong with me because he came from me. So.
And that's a possibility. And there's nothing
because
wrong.
Mental illness is hereditary.
Yeah.
It can.
There's nothing wrong with exposing that you have a problem. See, one of the biggest issues that I haven't quite got an understanding of is it's really not about you. It's about your legacy. It's about the people that come after you.
Right.
So if that's the case, if you have an issue, doesn't it make sense for you to treat the issue early, so that way the generations coming know what to deal with? They can diagnose these things earlier, so that way that they can live a quality of life. I mean, just because you may go through some hardships, doesn't mean that your children and your grandchildren have to go through those same issues later on in life. You just have to deal with them earlier on. But the one thing I keep hearing you say is, and I wanted to say this before I forgot, is educate. and knowledge, right? Unfortunately, in this society that we live in, it seems like education comes from Instagram and Facebook and any platforms of social media or hearsay because somebody said something. I can't figure out for the life of me. When I was growing up, the black community, the older black community, read books. They actually involved themselves in organizations that would inform them of whatever was going on in their community and in their lives. Now, people want somebody to tell them what's going on. They don't want to do any research on their own. So because they don't want to do any research on their own, there's no way that they can really identify what is actually going on in their home unless it's said on Facebook, the news. And even if a doctor tells you something, you know, there are so many cases of misdiagnosis in the medical world that we have to start doing our own research on certain things. You're taking pills for something, you don't even know what you're taking the pills for. You really don't even know what the pill is. You just say, I'm going there and pick up this pill. What is it? I just know the name. You don't know what's in it. You don't know what it's going to do to you on the other end. Anything. You just take it. But we have to say to ourselves, okay, well, I know that I have a problem. I know I have to deal with something. Let me educate myself on not only what I have to take, but what's going on with me and how can I put myself in a better position to maybe stop having to take medication or maybe to be in a better place in my life. We're just interested in what people have to say about us or what people have to say about our situation as opposed to trying to figure it out for ourselves.
You know, I tell all my clients to be proactive in your own health, your mental health and your physical health. And don't let a physician, they're practicing. They're just practicing.
Yeah.
So be proactive. And you're absolutely right. We should be reading more instead of asking Siri and Alexa what do they think and what it is. And this stuff is getting documented, but are our sources really scientific sources?
Right.
Or is it just someone who said, oh, I had this experience, let me just blurb about it real quick. And that may be just their experience. It may not necessarily be what you are experiencing. But that's where we're getting the information from. You're absolutely right about that.
But I do want to talk about, as a teacher, I'm coming from and what I've seen. It has a lot to do with society, at least in the kids. The grandmas raise the kids, and the mamas out there. You have kids on drugs. The mama, I had a pre-K kid came to school with drugs in his pocket because that's where his uncle would hide the drug packet so that somebody else in the family won't take the drug. But when you have kids that come from teenage parents, then you got the grandma that's young, and so you got the whole household that they're uneducated. You bring a parent in, and I was Miss Jones. I see some things that maybe you need to look at in John because he's not focusing, he's acting out. And I see some things that are concerned. And I'm calling you in now because as a mom, I think you need to take him to the doctor just to see if, ain't nothing wrong with him.
Right.
He's behind whip. It could be something more than that. But it's pulling teeth.
Yeah.
Getting him there. I had a kid, I had him in kindergarten. I knew something was wrong with him. And so I brought the mama in, and I could see the mama was missing a couple screws. And so I did work with him to put him in a special program. And years later, I saw on the news with the same kid that I saw these things. Did you see on the news where they were coming from court and one of the prisoners took his head within chains and took him and choked the one in front of him, the other prisoner, and killed him on the bus coming from court. And this was the same kid I taught in pre-K, and I saw that there was an issue. back then. But the mama didn't even have the intelligence to comprehend what was going on. And so just think of the kids, and I know you come from, you counsel those type parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just doesn't see the magnitude of what's going on because they don't know, they don't have the initiative, or they think what they see, or he just don't listen because he don't want to. They don't come up with or seek out.
Mm-hmm.
So
there is something. I have to speak for some of the parents that, you know, the clients that I serve. There is some, like, you know, Rudy, I like his perspective on things because he always tries to take it back to the foundation.
right.
There is some, I guess you could say, the way the system is set up, the way agencies, mental health agencies are set up.
Okay.
So you see the psychiatrist give you the medication. Medication is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It takes a while to get that medication correct with that child. And so that means mom has to be pulled away from work every time because the child didn't sleep at night, the child's having nightmares, now the child's seeing things. The medicine is just making my child worse. It's not making it any better. I'd rather put up with old child before I got introduced, before he got diagnosed, than to put up with what this medication is doing. So I could really hear their frustration with, forget about it. I'm missing work. I'm getting called to school more often than I was. At least before, I was only getting called to school twice a month. Now I'm getting called every week because the medication is not doing what it's supposed to do. And they tell these parents, they tell them all the time, it's going to take a minute. We got to find the right dosage for your child. We got to do this. We got to do this. And it has to be given every night at this time, you know. It's just you have to have that structure. And if you're talking about a child who's in a home that doesn't have any structure because the mom's a single mother and she's working full time and there's other things that's going on, and then you have a child that has mental illness, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, but let's go ahead and thank you guys. That was great. Let's go ahead and see what the viewers think about it. If you have an opinion about this topic, please leave your comments on wattsproduction.com. Thank you again for joining us on Topics. Your host, Valencia. Rudy, always glad to be with him. And Miss Patricia, thank you again for joining us. Check out this clip from Invisible Boundaries, created by Roxanne Fulton.
The white folks are the ones who get depressed and kill themselves. Not us. Not you. Not now. Not ever. Bitch, you hear me calling you? Fuck off of me. Do you not see how blessed you are to have all the things that you have? And you have a great man at home.
You must think you tough talking to me like that. You got your little fancy ass job, you think you the shit now.
But this fancy job is taking care of your little broke, lazy ass.
That ain't shit. What would be nice is if I had a mother that would understand me and help me. But instead you're just out here talking all this bullshit.
Well, you walking around here and moping around here like you all depressed. Do not understand that you are a child of God. Do you not see how blessed you are to have all the things that you have?
Let me tell you something. I'm still a man around this motherfucker.
Girl, you are too strong for this. Lauren?
Who else gonna want you, old depressed ass? Nobody. You know why? Because you ain't shit, and you ain't ever gonna be shit without me. You understand?
Bearing the face of my struggle, deep wounds turned into scars as proof of my survival. Feeling like I want to live and die at once. Not recognizing who I am. Living in a shell of who I used to be. Seeing my way through the darkness that surrounds me as I'm always fighting that stigmatic enemy no one else can see. Putting on the face of a strong black woman that's masked in pain and isolation. Wondering when will I ever feel the power of black girl magic as I carry the weight of 1,000 loads. Standing in the distance, watching those around me, wishing that happiness was something contagious. Wanting to scream out, "I'm not okay! Can somebody listen to me?" Yet scared to show any signs of transparency. Naked mentally as the storm rages inside my brain. Feeling like a burden to everyone around me as I cope with these invisible boundaries overtaking me.